Hey guys, Alien Dan here. If I wasn't a streamer and content creator, I would 100% switch to the Pimax Crystal. In this video, I'll let you know why. So the usual disclaimer first, Pimax did send me this headset for review. I can keep it for 90 days, test it, make the video, but then I'll have to send it back and that will be definitely hard. Might have to accidentally get lost in shipping or something because it's really, really good. I also have an affiliate link for the headset if you want to support the channel at no cost for you. That also gives you a $20 discount on the Crystal once you pay your pre-order. So this is more like a first impression video. I've had it for about 2 weeks now. And me being relatively new to VR, I had to learn a lot of stuff, figure stuff out. I'm still not 100% there. I still need to learn a lot of things. But I wanted to make a first quick impression video, talk about the features, talk about what I like and what I dislike. It's more like no fancy B-roll video, just like me talking about it and showing you all the features. There's a feature called dynamic foveated rendering. I hope I pronounced that correctly. That is absolutely a game changer, especially for ACC. But I will show you all these features in the game. Very quickly, the build quality I think is decent. I think for the price, it could maybe be a little bit better. It is a lot of plastic, it is heavy, and the buttons feel okay, but overall it feels solid enough and I don't see any issues using this, to be honest. One thing that is a bit weird, but apparently it is because of a licensing issue with the chip they use in here, because this headset also works in standalone mode. Obviously I haven't tried it, but even if you use it in your rig, you need to actually install this battery here. It lasts about 5 to 6 hours according to Pimax. I haven't measured it. I've had no issue with battery life. It comes with 2, so you can always switch around and have one fully charged. But keep that in mind that it is a battery-powered headset. The installation process, very, very easy. You just install the Pimax Play software. This is how it looks like. The diagnose messages are insanely not helpful. Because I had some issues first with the headset, because I had my triples connected and the VR headset. I thought 4 outputs, that works fine, but the resolution then is actually too high. So I had to disable the side monitors in order for the VR headset to work. But the only error I got was like update your GPU driver. That was not insanely helpful, but yeah. Installation is very, very easy. You basically just install the Pimax Play software. We are using a beta software here because that one has eye tracking and the auto IPD adjustment enabled. But it's pretty much install the software and you're good to go. I've had no problems with this, apart from that issue with the too high resolution with triples and VR connected. But apart from that, it has been perfectly fine. The Pimax Crystal is probably the first VR headset where I did not put it on my eyes and be like, okay, it is a little bit pixelated. I wish I had my triples still here because there everything just looks sharper. This is, you don't really see any pixels. Like if you really, really, really want to see it and focus insanely hard, you can see the pixels still, but it's comparable to these 1440p triples, I would say. It's insanely nice. And the absence of that pixelated grid you typically see, it just makes it feel even more real, in my opinion. It also uses a QLED panel, I think, with local dimming and stuff. The colors look very nice. Contrast is great. The blacks are really dark. I don't think it's OLED, but it kind of looks close to that, I would say. The sharpness and resolution, according to Pimax, is 35 ppd, pixels per degree. And like I said, I don't really see any pixels while using that. FOV, I don't have a lot of experience. I know the HP Reverb Gen 2. I would say this has a slightly higher FOV, but you definitely still get this helmet feeling when you wear it. So your view is not limited by your eyes, but you see some black borders at the end of your visual field. I absolutely don't think that is a problem at all. If you like the FOV of something like the HP Reverb, this is slightly bigger, I would say. So you will be fine. It feels basically like wearing a racing helmet while driving, so it might actually improve your immersion. I've had no complaints about the FOV. When testing it in a flight simulator, I wished the FOV was maybe a bit bigger, but yeah. Okay, a few words about the benchmark system here. We are using a 4090 GPU and a 13900K. I probably should put the X3D 7950X in this system, but I haven't done that yet. But I would assume it would perform even better with that CPU because we are, in many cases, CPU bottlenecked in sim racing. I'm going to show you iRacing and ACC. The headset itself is set to 120 Hz. I've had 0 problems with that. Apparently, according to the website, there's also a 144 and 165 Hz mode in testing, but I don't have access to that. Backlight I like to run at around 90. It's insanely bright, so with the eyes setting, it's almost a pain in your eyes. If you, for example, if you drive through a tunnel and then you get out of the tunnel again, you look into the sun, it's almost blinding you. So I turned this down a little bit. Then I have eye tracking enabled and the auto IPD adjustment. Pretty convenient. It's showing 58 here, but when I set it up, it's typically 59.2, 59.5. And then for the render quality, what we are running today will be the custom setting at 1. So we are rendering the full resolution, but no oversampling because that resolution is already high enough. Then smart smoothing I have disabled. Didn't really notice a big difference, to be honest. And the rest is pretty much default. But I would say we'll start with iRacing and I'll show you the performance and talk a little bit about my impressions in that game. Also the settings. We are using OpenXR. This thing is fully compatible with OpenXR. There's also a new version of the OpenXR toolkit, I think. 0.4 that enabled the eye tracking. I think for the public use, currently the eye tracking is not enabled in the software yet. I do have access to it. Pimax was so kind to give me access to that. And it works fine. I'll show you how to use it, what it's doing. It's very, very nice to see because you can basically make the stuff you're not looking at black and then you see what's happening there. But I would say we'll hop into the sim. We're going to do LMP3 at most port because that's the combination I've been driving this week. So just convenient. Okay, so when I actually put this on, wait, you don't see the overlay, no. It basically tells me how I need to put the headset on. So for example, now it's relatively high. So it tells me I should put it lower. And then until, now it says, okay, I hold it there for a second. Then it adjusts the eye distance automatically. And then we are good to go. Just need to see that I select the correct mirror here. Because we have the mirror from the OpenXR toolkit, where you can also see the menu. And then this is basically the iRacing mirror. Kind of looks horrible, but it is what it is. And then this is basically just what the left eye is seeing. So as you can see here, there's also the FPS and stuff. And I want to show you the menu. If I go here, this is the OpenXR toolkit menu. So you can see what I'm doing there. Wait, first I'll show you the options here, just so that you see what I'm using for graphic settings. We do have pit objects and grandstands set to low detail. Apart from that, I'm pretty much using whatever I'm using on my triple screens. I do have the shadow maps and cloud shadows turned off because that costs a lot of performance with not a lot of visual gain. I typically run that on off on my triples now as well. Then we do render for cockpit mirrors, no virtual mirror. Heat haze because it looks pretty when it's warm. And yeah, but now we'll switch to this so that you can see the mirror. Yeah. As you can see, FPS, we are at 80, 90 now because we are CPU bottlenecked. Like I said, with the 7950X3D, it's probably better. But these are the settings that I'm using right now. So I do use the NIS upscaler set to 75%. It's like a very good upscaler that renders the game at a lower resolution and then upscales it. With the insanely high resolution of this headset, I think you can get away with 75%. It still looks very, very sharp. There are sometimes a few artifacts, like if you look at the fence there, for example, but when you're driving, you don't notice that. And then I'm also using foveated rendering, and I'll show you what that is doing. I have the eye tracking enabled, and if I turn off the middle ring here, you can see what it's doing. As you can tell, there's a little dot in the middle. Wait, can you see that in the recording? You can, perfect. So in the middle, we now have an area, 25% size, that is rendered at the full resolution. So this is wherever I'm looking at. For example, now I'm looking at the race logic or at the steering wheel now, sky, you get the idea. So this is rendered at the full resolution. If I turn this down, you see the rendered resolution will look potato. And this is basically how our eyes are working. So the eyes will only see sharp in the middle of your field of view. And then the closer it goes to the edge, basically the less sharp you can see. So we can, for example, make this ring here a little bit smaller. Let's say 80%, where we want to render at a resolution of, let's say, at 1/16th, what a hard word to say, of the resolution. I do not see that it looks bad, but I do see the flickering from the lower resolution. So what I like to use is a quarter resolution here. that way, for me, with these settings, like 25% inner ring at full resolution, quarter resolution, 80% outer ring, and then outside of that is, well, the stuff on the very outside, 1/16, just so that there's some colors. I don't notice that we are rendering in the lower resolution. You can probably see it very clearly in the recording because you obviously look for it. But for example, like if I look around, then the sharp spot will just move. And well, that's the idea of the whole dynamic foveated rendering. But let's just drive a little bit. You can see that we are pretty much CPU bottlenecked because iRacing, I need to reset here and then go back. Because when I'm driving with triples, I'm basically sitting here. So when I reset, I don't want to change the camera setting around all the time, so I'll just reset when I'm in the front left. So we are getting 90 FPS here on iRacing. We can turn down some settings to get the full 120, but this looks fine to me. Honestly, if I wasn't streaming, I think for streaming VR is not good because you see the captured image just doesn't look very nice and it's a little bit, I don't know. I don't really like looking at VR streams, so I'm also not gonna stream in VR, but if I was not doing this whole thing, 100% I would switch to that. The visual quality that I'm seeing here is absolutely amazing. I do get higher FPS when I'm not recording because OBS is stealing a little bit of power here, but I was not hitting the full 120. I was at around 110, 1.5 maybe, but that is good enough in my opinion. You can also go to the 90 FPS mode. Then you have a higher headroom available. And I think the difference between 90 and 120 FPS is not insanely big. It is noticeable, but I would probably just run it in 90 frames mode on a daily basis. But yeah, it's so much like VR. If you haven't tried VR, you need to do it. It's hard to describe. It feels like you're sitting in the car. And with this visual quality, I don't know, like my issue with VR in the past has always been that it feels... the graphics just didn't look as nice. But here with this resolution, I mean, if I look at the steering wheel here, everything is so crystal clear. Crystal clear, yeah, get it? Wait, where's my... there we go. Yeah, I would definitely switch to that. I'm not faster with it, mainly because I'm used to monitors. When I tested this and wasn't like driving and playing around and stuff, I was like 2 to 3/10 of my monitor time because the braking points just feel different. But if I was using this regularly, I'm pretty sure that the lap time would just be the same or maybe even better than using monitors. And especially when you're close to other cars, it's just very, very nice to be able to look to your side and you just have a better spatial awareness of what's going on around you. One downside, this headset is freaking huge, and you can see I'm using a seat with these ears, so I can't really look that much to the left and right because I'm just like hitting the ears. So if you want to get something like the Pimax, I would recommend get a seat without these ears. I mean, it makes no sense anyways for sim racing. Don't ask me why I have this. But yeah, this is just something to consider. But yeah, on iRacing, the DFR does not make a big difference. If I go to off here and on, you can see the frame rate is pretty much the same because we are just CPU bottlenecked. There's nothing we can really do about that. Even if I turn this off, then we are getting 120 FPS now, but now we have insanely tunnel vision, so we do not want that. But something we could do, for example, I guess, is first of all highlight the iRacing window, because otherwise I cannot operate it. But for example, turning off the mirrors would probably give us better performance. Yeah, you can see now we are hitting 120 FPS. Let me switch to the other window again. So I haven't played a lot with the in-game settings, but it's definitely possible to have this run on 120 FPS. I think the resolution could probably be turned down even more because it's so... everything is so sharp and so good looking. It's... I guess if I rendered this at like 80% of what I have currently, it would still be more than sufficient. You can see now, if we look at the CPU and GPU headroom, we have about 50% of CPU headroom, 20% of GPU headroom. iRacing is not benefiting that much from the foveated rendering, from my experience, unless you really make the outer ring black, so iRacing doesn't render as much, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would probably just turn off some other settings like the mirrors or something that you don't really need, and then get the better performance from that. We are currently running 40 cars on track here. Most sport is not a very well optimized track, but also not the most taxing track. But 90 FPS mode, I see absolutely no problem. With 120 FPS mode, you will definitely have to tweak your settings a little bit. Play around with the upscaler and the native rendered resolution, stuff like that. And I'm sure like once I use this for a longer time, I will find ways to optimize the performance more. Like I said, I'm just losing VR for like 2 weeks now. And I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to this. And especially iRacing is just weird when it comes to performance. Like you would sometimes think doing this and that will improve performance, and iRacing be like, yeah, how about no? And then, yeah, it's just try and error. I will keep using this with iRacing, and I will make another video after 2 months or so of using this, where I talk about my impressions and give you a verdict then. But I am very, very, very pleasantly surprised how this feels. But I would say we'll hop onto ACC, because ACC is known to be horrible optimized for VR, and there the DFR actually helps a lot. But let's boot up ACC. Alright, the settings I'm using is pretty much the VR high preset. The only thing that I did was contact shadows set to enabled, view distance high, and then I turned down the VR pixel density because then it's probably oversampling, and then we are upscaling, and I just set this to 100%. That looked good. And as you can see here, while we are sitting in the pits with DFR on, again, it looks horrible on the screen recording. But if you're wearing the headset, you do not see a difference between the foveated rendering enabled and disabled with the eye tracking. And in terms of performance, I will show you the correct window here. So get into the Pimax, OpenXR thing mirror. So this is with foveated rendering enabled. And if we turn it off, I mean, we still get the 120 FPS here sitting in the pits, but you see the GPU headroom is 15%, and with it on, it's actually 21. So it gives a performance boost without costing anything pretty much. And I mean, when you're just sitting here, alone on track, the game can handle it, no problem, 120 FPS. But if you're actually doing a race, then... Oh yeah, haven't driven ACC in quite a while. If you're actually doing a race, then your performance headroom is actually shrinking quite a bit. You will drop below 120 FPS, even with the DFR enabled. In very rare scenarios, let me actually, I'll boot up an AI race, so AI with 30 drivers, probably at night, because that's the most taxing on ACC, I think. And I will show you the FPS numbers, but something that I need to say, it looks so freaking amazing. ACC in VR is supposed to look... Wait, I'll turn off the DFR so it actually looks a little bit... a little bit amazing for you as well, maybe. It's probably very hard to see on that VR mirror, but everything is so incredibly sharp. I don't think I've ever seen ACC so sharp even on monitors. You know, ACC always has that problem that it's slightly blurry in the distance. For whatever reason, with this, it's just not the case. It looks like a different game, honestly. It's really, really nice, but I'll hop... Wait. Oh, the whole... Whatever needs to be in focus here is slightly annoying. You don't have to do that when you're driving, obviously. It's just for me, so... For me, well, actually it's for you, so you can see the menu and the frame rate and the headroom stuff. Alright, ACC, DFR is enabled, so wherever I look, it is sharp. Oh shit, I need to start the car. And where's the light? Here. Ooh. That blue light looks pretty. But as you can see, in these settings that I'm using, VR high with some stuff turned up a little, and the VR resolution turned down from 120 to 100. Using OpenXR with the NIS upscaler set to 75% and the render quality in the Pimax Crystal set to 100%, the performance is not a big problem. We do see more of a CPU bottleneck here. Again, if we used the 7950X3D, this would be much better because ACC loves the 3D cache. See, now we have a CPU bottleneck. The GPU is actually fine, so we probably wouldn't even have to use the DFR, but especially if you're on a weaker GPU and you're typically GPU bottlenecked, this will make your life so much easier. You can probably run the same settings on the 4080, 4070. I unfortunately, what am I doing here? Don't have one of those here. But yeah, you see 120 Hertz. A few tiny drops at the start, but now we are pretty much good to go. And it looks so pretty. It looks much nicer than iRacing actually. And I've always heard that ACC is horrible in VR and everything, but with this and that high resolution and the DFR that allows the 120 FPS, it's just amazing. So yeah, it's just absolutely incredible. The tracking issues that some reviewers noticed, by the way, with jittery movements, I guess I got lucky. I don't have any problems with this. The only problem I have right now is that I haven't driven ACC in forever and can't drive. But so far, this headset has been very, very easy to use. No problems. Firmware update. The firmware update takes a little while, like 20 minutes, and you think, okay, now everything broke. But you just have to be patient. But so far, no problems. Very, very happy with this. Like I said, if I was not streaming or a content creator, because let's be honest, this looks a little bit ridiculous on the cameras. If I wasn't doing that, I 100% would have to learn how to drive in VR, and I would use that. It's not even close to the experience of triples. You have this in the car feeling, and the high resolution and everything. You can probably tell I'm insanely impressed by this headset. It's just, oh my god. Let's just blame that I don't have a setup loaded, okay? It's bonk. It's, yeah. You can tell I don't really have words for it. And again, I have to say that several times because I know people will be like, oh my god, this looks so horrible. The pixels that you see now, because I'm recording this, at the outer edge of the picture, I don't see that because we have eye tracking. I always see a very sharp render of everything. So yeah, it's free performance at no cost, pretty much, because it's not noticeable, not at all. It's also very amazing on Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm not going to show you that now because there are enough Flight Simulator VR guys that will talk about this. But in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I get a boost of like 60 to 80, 90 FPS using epic settings with this PC, with using the DFR. And I think I hate that word, but it's a game changer for VR to have the DFR working. So yeah, I would say that's pretty much it for the video. There will be a full review in, let's say, 2 months or so. I want to give this enough time. I want to get more knowledgeable with VR, what's important, how to benchmark everything, and oh, it's so cool to be able to look around the car. And I just want to educate myself a bit more so I can give you my best suggestions for this. I will also put the X3D processor in the system because now we are actually in a CPU bottleneck scenario, and the X3D, at least for iRacing and ACC, is much better than the Intel, so we will try that, see if that helps. And yeah, 120 FPS, it's pretty awesome. We can, well, I can't go to the settings, but it's the VR high preset. The VR Epic preset is still like, I get like 70, 80 FPS with VFR, maybe 100. But the high preset in VR to me looks basically indistinguishable. It actually looks pretty cool to see the car.
Faster car approaching. Watch out.
Going around here. Yeah, as you can probably see, I'm pretty amazed by VR. But that's it for the video. Again, if you are interested in this headset, use code DanSuzuki on checkout. That gives you 20%. No, 20%, that would be nice. $20 off. It's an expensive headset. It's like 1.5K or so. And it also supports the channel for free for you, basically. So if you want to help out with that, there's the link in the description. It is an affiliate link, keep in mind. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything that I should cover in future videos with this, let me know. If you have advice for me, what I can do and try, also please let me know. That's it for this one, and I hope to see you all in the next one. If you like the content, maybe like the video and subscribe to the channel. Bye bye.